Welcome to a sunny South African presentation today by a legend himself. Let me quickly tell you an interesting story about Ernst. Ernst actually was part of SANBI for many years. In fact, he was with SANBI for 41 years, 89 days. And I had to go and do my research. 41 years and 89 days. I mean, that is an amazing service. He started working for SANBI in 1974, and he actually he got stolen from us by Stellies back in 2015. So since 2015 until now, he's going to be telling us some amazing work that he's been doing there. And we are absolutely, delighted to have you here. I mean, having you on this platform is absolutely amazing. Let me also share with everybody that's joining us on the platform this morning that Ernst was actually the curator of our Kirstenbosch Conservatory. And if you've ever visited the garden, you know the glass house, it's always in pristine condition. I mean, that standards that you see is actually the standards that Ernst actually created for the garden. His love for plants, botany, horticulture is completely unmatched. And I think today we're going to be blown away by some of the amazing stuff. And so I don't want to take too much time, but please, if you may allow me, I'd like to just share a quick description about the work that you've done for us and for the industry at large. Ernst is a botanist, horticulture, and a scientist. He's a specialist. He absolutely loves his succulents, and we're hoping that today you're going to share a little bit about that. He was born in Johannesburg, worked for SANBI, like I said, for 41 years, 1974 until 2015. He was first in the Lowveld Garden and then transferred to Kirstenbosch. He was the curator of the conservatory. Ernst is the author of a number of books and papers, and he's a respected scientist in the field of botany and horticulture. Ernst is currently a full-time botanist and horticulture at the Babylonstoren Farm. He specializes in succulents and oversees the succulent garden there at Babylon. So I don't want to take too much because of your CV is just too long. You know what they say? They say when you do what you love, it never feels like work. So Ernst, thank you for making time to be with us this morning. It's an absolute pleasure. We miss you here at Kirstenbosch. So please, when you have time, please make sure to come and visit. Everybody else, please sit back, enjoy this amazing presentation that's coming up. Remember to leave a comment or any question that you may have on the Q&A that is listed over there. And to everybody else, I will see you guys on the other side of the call. Ernst, over to you.
Thank you very much, John, and thanks for everything said. It's a privilege to speak to you all, and I've been here now at Babylonstoren Farm for at least 6 years, and almost in October it will be seven years. So I'm very thankful for this position, and I'll give you a little bit of background on Babylonstoren, what we do here, and it's not very much different to what I've done at Kirstenbosch, because I still focus on succulent plants. So Babylonstoren Farm is more than 1,000 hectares, and it is still growing because the two adjacent farms were also bought up by the owners. And the one is Sitmelk's Vlei, and just situated adjacent to us, and that's going to be developed as a historical farm arrested about in 1881. And so Babylonstoren Farm, the owners of the farm, Koos and Karen Becker, they love history, and they wanted to tell the history of South Africa. And they wanted to also to get a very, very old farm where they can tell this history, and which was great. They at the time, this farm, Babylonstoren, which is close to, situated between Franschhoek and Klapmuts, became available. It belonged to Maggie Lowe, and her husband died tragically in while he was doing the Argus. And so the Babylonstoren Farm was in the Lowe family for more than 150 years. So when this farm became available, they immediately bought it up to tell that history. So and it's just to reflect the history of South Africa as we see it today. And it all happened as a lack of spices in Europe. So it forced these forced the Europeans. I mean, I think the food must have been terrible in Europe, but not only the taste of the food, the spices jacked up, but you must remember in the 1600s, there were no refrigeration. So what was important to get something to, if the meat becomes rancid, for instance. So so these, so the spice garden were established. Oh, no, the spice route, and the VOC dominated the seas for 200 years, and they realized that the poor sailors got scurvy, and they had to make a plan. So they appointed this young surgeon, Jan van Riebeeck, and they said, Jan, you must start a small refreshment garden at Table Bay. The idea was never to establish a new nation. It just spontaneously happened. And Van Riebeeck only stayed for 10 years. So we also, we recreated that garden of Jan van Riebeeck here on, at Babylonstoren Farm. And it was laid out by Patrice Travella. And then we also have a garden of the sun where we honor and exhibit the plant knowledge used by the sun, the original inhabitants. So we also have a healing garden, and the reason why the owners asked me to come and work here was to take part in creating an indigenous botanical garden with indigenous trees, cycad, succulents, and biomes garden. And it's still growing, so it's still in its infancy. So South Africa is diverse and one of the greatest succulent plant diversities in the world. And also to display some of this diversity. So I'll take you through the garden and just tell you and giving you a little bit introduction, prehistory of the farm, and also then the fruit and vegetable garden, the healing garden, take you through to the succulent house, spice house and conservation research and other education we do, and also the natural vegetation. So our vision is to create a leading commercial friendly farm, hotel, restaurant, and botanical garden, and provide expertise, knowledge, horticultural knowledge on gardening and research. And our mission is just to stimulate and share the love of garden, farming, cultural history, and indigenous plants, animals, and their conservation, and making people feel at home, and provide local food from our eco-friendly garden to for the Babel restaurant and other restaurants on the property. So one can ask, why is it called the farm Babylonstoren? It just means the Tower of Babel. To think in these 1600s, the early pioneers that came to South Africa, they didn't have any they didn't have any magazines. All they had was a Bible. In each of the Bible was usually illustration of the Tower of Babel. Anything that looked pyramidal, they called it Tower of Babel. So that's how the farm got its name. And also during the early days in the 1600s, it was the Dutch, Germans, French, Malayan slaves from Africa and Madagascar, and that gathered near this mountain to discuss work. And there was always a confusion with the languages. And that's another thought why they called it Babylonstoren. But out of all these different languages, a new endemic African language was born, and it's widely spoken in the Cape today, which is called Afrikaans, which just means it is from Africa. So what is new? Things happen a lot at Babylonstoren Farm, and the entrance has been renewed. And you will see here the typical, most of the buildings are all in the Cape Dutch style. We've got lots of water. We've got many, many big reservoirs. You think this is a winter rainfall area, but most of our crops is summer rain. And to compensate for that summer rain, we have to accumulate water. So farmers are usually allowed during winter to get their water from the Berg River, which is stored in various reservoirs. And it's slowly released during summertime. And you'll see here as well We've got an upside down aquarium just placed on top, and to get the water in that aquarium is actually very simple. People often ask, can these fish swim out? Yes, they can, and it's we just take a ordinary household vacuum cleaner, and we suck out the air. And as the air is sucked out, the pressure drops and the water comes flowing in. And the fish, they're cold-blooded. They love the sun. They love to be heated by the sun. And that's why hot air and hot water will always rise. And that's why they often go into this aquarium. These fish are Horticulturist mozambicus. It's a South African fish which is with an amazing ability. It can take salt water twice as much as the sea. They adapted to estuaries there in Mozambique, as well as in KwaZulu-Natal, for instance, St. Lucia estuary. It often happens that the water evaporates and the salt content becomes saltier than the sea. So they adapted to both being grown, and they are very popular in aquaculture because they grow very quickly. They're omnivorous as well. The males have got dark fins, become very dark and reddish marks on their fins, and they become sexually active. They build a nest, and they are actually mouth brooders, so the young will be protected in their mouths. And interestingly, the Japanese discovered these fish. They keep them in fishing baskets in Japan, and they find if you keep them in seawater, the flesh turns from white to pink, and it's a very, very good sushi fish, for instance. So the farm has got also many, many fish species. We're focusing mainly on general fish which can be caught, but we also are introducing many other indigenous fishes to our land. So also interesting in the new entrants, these bronze reptiles and amphibians, and all these reptiles and amphibians reflect local frogs found in our area. And they've all got little electronic eyes. And when you walk past them, for instance, this Cape Cobra will squirt at you. We also have many, many snakes at Babylonstoren Farm. We don't kill snakes. They do a lot of biological control, and the snakes are usually non-aggressive. We see a lot of Cape Cobras. They're very beautiful and part of our biodiversity, and they will never attack anyone. Snakes do not want confrontation with humans. And our hotel entrance, we've got these two beautiful fan aloes. Their name is today is called Kumara plicatilis. And interesting thing about them, they only occur locally. So all our mountains on Kanonkop, also Simonsberg, also the Tuiskloof Mountains are found very commonly, and they grow up to about 3-4 meters tall. The leaves are always in opposite pairs, and the leaves become deciduous from below. But what is interesting about their stems, they've got a cork on their stems, and if you follow my arrow here, aloe plicatilis is the only aloe in the world with a thick cork layer, and that tells you that fynbos, the natural vegetation, where they occur in, are governed by fire. In spite of the long dry summers and also poor soil, it is usually fire, and that is a protection against fire. And it's exactly the same, for instance, while the cork oak has a thick corky layer in the Mediterranean region. So those aloes usually flower in October, and they attract a lot of sunbirds. Also, which is very new, is the Wine Museum. It was opened in 2022, and people are welcome to have a look. This is only one of their rooms. It's done very, very thoroughly, telling the story of wine in South Africa. And this is also the new underground cellar, which the public can also enjoy. And at the moment, the sparse state and harvesting is in the process. So many of our grapes are being harvested, and the olives will follow shortly after that. And the fruit and vegetable gardens, landscape architect was Patrice Travella, and he based it on the company's garden at the Cape. You can see all the hedges very neatly clipped, a lot of citrus, a lot of roses on these pillars. The indigenous, the hedges, many of them with indigenous plants such as Ciacia crenata, the dune crowberry, and other indigenous plants like Ficoma capensis, etc. So our indigenous knowledge which we have today from all the plants that we use, came mostly from Khoi and San. And the Khoi was herders, and the San people were hunter-gatherers. And the Bantu settlers, the Bantu growers, they were growers of crops and were settlement. And the reason why the Bantu tribes never moved into the winter rainfall area was because of their summer rainfall crop, sorghum. They grew sorghum, and sorghum could not grow in the winter rainfall region. So if you think these Europeans in the 1600s, if I show you from Europe, people had to, at first there was long caravans that brought these spices over land. But by the time they got to Europe, it already went off. These spices were extremely expensive and hard to get hold of. But the VOC then discovered what to do. The VOC was a big company, a Dutch company, and they sent their ships around, all around Africa, right to the east, where they collected these spices. Spices were so expensive. You think in Afrikaans we have a saying, expression, peperduur, as expensive as pepper. Also, if you think, and it just slowly grew from that. So it started as a small refreshment post. And as I said, the idea was never permanently established, but it just spontaneously happened. So many other peoples also arrived. So Van Riebeeck only stayed 10 years and then he was replaced. And that's the map of the old company's garden as recorded by a historian that visited Babylonstoren in the early 1700s. And at Babylonstoren Farm, wherever you look, in fact, not only here, but in South Africa, you'll always find Stone Age artifacts, and they date from the very old Stone Age up to 1 million years and maybe a little bit longer to the very younger and later Stone Age, and which shows I've traveled many parts of the world and I've never found these older Stone Age objects in parts outside of Africa, which shows Africa is the cradle of all humankind. This is the latter Stone Age rock that was used called the Enkistok. So it was the Khoi woman that usually used them. They also used wild olive wood, which are very, very strong to get the bulbs from the soil. It was especially Enkis, Trachyandra, which they collected while the men were mainly with their cattle and in the field. So the woman was responsible. And there's the common Enki, Cyanella symphoides bulbs. They are one can eat them fresh, or you can roast them. They are delicious. And in our restaurant, they also provide them for the guests to taste. So that is typical Enkis, and it is common. It's very, very common in the field, but the soil is very, very hard, and the Khoi women struggle to get them out of the soil. Because even if we use iron like picks, we still struggle to get them out. Most of these bulbs is only about 6 inches below the soil, but it's difficult to get them out of the hard clay during the months of summer. And these are some of the older Stone Age objects and that are found on this farm and elsewhere in South Africa. So the Khoi and San people, they were the indigenous people. The Khoi had both fat-tailed sheep as well as the Nguni cattle. Interestingly, in South Africa, it's the only place where the ox wagon were used a lot. And in other parts of the world for transport and for building, it was mainly by horse cart. But it's because the Khoi people loved their cattle. They knew them so well. They're very intelligent. They could get them onto the wagons, and they knew exactly, each one had a name. And all these older buildings, the old bridges, all built by Nguni oxen of the Khoi people. And these are some of in the beginning in 1652, when Van Riebeeck came, obviously he hadn't started the garden, but they needed some vegetables. So they traded with the Khoi people. And one of these plants are, for instance, the wild onion. It's Allium dregianum, and it's the only indigenous allium in Southern Africa. All the other allium species, and there are many, are all situated in the northern hemisphere. So, and it's interesting, if you see these onions in the field and you pull them out, the onion usually comes out with a flower stalk, but it always leaves little daughter bulbs at the base. So it's so well adapted for people to harvest it. and always leaving a little bulb so you can harvest them, and next year there will be another bulb in growth. And also, the angulate tortoise were quite important food item of the Khoi people at the time. It is still very, very common in the Western Cape. And incidentally, we are also a tortoise reserve, so we conserve a lot of tortoises, local indigenous tortoises. And also, when Patrice de Valle were busy excavating the garden to create it, many, many potsherds were found, but it mainly represented China and Delft from the trade with the East, but also, as I mentioned, also the Stone Age artifacts that were found commonly in the area. So we will look, the Babylonstoren farm stands on three legs. It's the commercial farm, the hotel and restaurant business, and then the garden as well. And the owners, you will also, one unique aspect of Babylonstoren Farm, you will never find any rules and regulations you're confronted with. The owner said that wherever you go in the world, you're always confronted with rules that says, keep off the lawn, don't do this, don't do that, and always securities watch you. But they wanted to create really a friendly farm where people can feel at home without securities watch you all the time. And if you see a nice peach or a prickly pear that you want to eat, that you can eat. So that's what they created. And the commercial farm, we grow a lot of crops. So it's grapes, olives, lots of fruits, apples, plums. There's also essential oils, mainly rosemary and lavender, but obviously there's lots of indigenous ones as well, some pelargonium species and even a species of helichrysum. Then we've got a lot of citrus, pears, pomegranates. We've also got trying now dragon fruit, as well as avocados, and lots of nuts, pecan nuts, and so the food is produced for the local as well as the export market, but even also risotto rice. So we've got a rice paddy and obviously waterblommetjies, which is the indigenous one. So the commercial farm is just with these lot of vineyards and different cultivars, and our grapes are done locally and wine made locally as well. And this is a portion of the garden, just showing you some of the fruits. There are so many different figs at the moment in fruit. We've got at least 15 different cultivars of the normal fig, Ficus carica, and they do very well at the Cape. And what we do to protect it from the fig borer is at the base, we protect them with a little bit bitumen, and which we then put a fine mesh wire around the stem, and that prohibits these big beetles to lay their eggs, which does all this damage to the poor figs. But it is really the land of milk and honey with a lot of fruits. The medlars is also now coming into fruit. Pears, we're trying to revive also some of the older fruit that became out of fashion. And also one of my tasks is to get many of these old cultivars. And one of them I was so glad to get from Rosewood, from Barbara Knockshaw and her husband, this beautiful Rosa de Pentres. That was the first rose introduced to the Cape by Van Riebeeck. And Van Riebeeck, he was very meticulous. Everything that happened on the farm, when the first lemons were plucked, he noted that. When the first rose came into flower, and he noted as well, when the first rose on the 1st of November came into flower. And amazingly, this cultivar, which I got from the Knockshaws, also flowered for the first time last year on the 1st of November. So we will get all the first pears, the first apples. We're trying to get all these old cultivars to show people. And then we've got a healing garden. And this was laid out by Gundula Deutschlander, my colleague, representing plants from all over the world. But I think with a focus, most of them are South African plants. For instance, what you see there, on the right-hand side, the tall tree there is the willow. And today, most of us use aspirins. Aspirins come from the bark of the willow tree. And there's many, many other examples. We've got Sneezewood, many beautiful indigenous woods, also the quinine tree with a bitter sap, and Artemisia afra, you can see on that side, which is today used very successfully in treating malaria. In fact, when I go in parts of Namibia with malaria area, I usually take these capsules with Artemisia in, and it works very, very effective. One of my first the gardens that I had to do when I arrived there was the Garden of the Sun. And here we honor the sun and all the knowledge we got from them. So this garden consists of 4 growth areas, and this was about in 2015 or before then. 4 beautiful trees planted by Kundula. These are all the Bourboons, Scotia brachypetala, which flowers usually during spring, attracting a lot of sunbirds with the indigenous pond as well. So I just had these flat beds to work from, and we decided on 3 or 4 growth areas. One was Fynbos, that was the old bed, and one the Eastern Cape, Robertson Karoo, and the Eastern Cape section. So, and I just started, we first cleared the section early in 2016. Luckily, I had a truck and with a crane at my disposal, and I brought in all the local rocks, starting with the Robertson Karoo area. And we got some rocks from various farms. I'm thankful to Ansu Leroux, who helped me to obtain many of these rocks on various farms from the Robertson Karoo area. These Dwicatilites, and we got in, that was some of the indigenous plants, this beautiful Villa Angelier, or Dianthus cyaspitosus. And then we also created a local fynbos in one of these blocks. This was the early garden, and also the Hantam region. In the area, we introduced all the local rocks as well as the local plants. It was a few years ago. And to the Eastern Cape section, we introduced typical geology from that area, from granite to the Enon conglomerates, and recreating that garden. And then the Robertson Karoo just early planted, and that's how it looked in the first time in spring. When one approaches gardening, it's always best when you start with indigenous gardening, make use of your pioneers. Pioneers grow very, very quickly. And what is better than our beautiful annuals from the Western Cape? So we sowed many of these annuals. I also got many of these seedlings from Kirstenbosch Botanic Gardens. We sowed them in, and that was the first show. And together with them, we planted all our permanent plants, and which slowly growing, as well as the Jordaniella and the Monifloris on the right-hand side, which is almost extinct today from the Cape Peninsula. But this is the Garden of the Sun in spring of 2016. So it's slowly growing and getting matured. So the first phase is just to get your pioneers in and then plant your permanent plants with them. And the pioneers help along the other plants. And you can see it's a beautiful natural hybrid of Pelargonium trista in the garden. Also, this Rooipens tortoise busy laying eggs. We get lots of little babies annually of our tortoises as well. And that is the garden during summertime. So summertime is not as colorful, although the beautiful Crinum campanulatum from the Eastern Cape. We've got a lot of them, and Marsilia in the background as well. So this Crinum is one of the few Crinums that grows in water and endemic only to a few ponds in the Eastern Cape, but you get them both in white and pink, and they make a beautiful garden subject. That's the same Garden of the Sun, the Robertson Karoo area in March 2022. It's maturing. You can see all the beautiful waterbome, they're deciduous, they've got these beautiful architectural shapes, and also the Cotyledon Spuria, Cotyledon, and Euphorbia Mauritanica in the background. The Mauritanica euphorbia is also a pioneer, very, very rapid grower. And this is the Hantam section today. And you can see also the Cearcia Burchelli. These Cearcias were used by the Sun people to make their bows. And in other parts of South Africa, they used again other types. And this is the Eastern Cape section today. You can see the Enon conglomerates at the base. In the back, the Wittenberg quartzites. You can see the euphorbias have now matured after 6 years, getting bigger and bigger. We even introduced a little Viscum crasulae, which only grows on, it's a beautiful little mistletoe, only on euphorbias as well as on Horticulturist afra, or the speckboom. And it never kills its host, and it's got full of beautiful little red berries. And then the succulent collection consists both of the succulent house, you see on the left-hand side, the Litop Beerkeskul, the Makwaland garden, and then together with the Fynbos garden. This was the succulent house Koos told me before I came to work here, he said, I will build you a house where you can introduce succulents. That's what they constructed for me. And then he said, fill it up with succulents. So I did it. By December, we filled it up, and with various indigenous succulent plants, all arranged, just like I did it at Christmas, in their various sections. And we first had them in all these pots, which were made by fabric. And Koos said to me, he wants rather to have pots made by hand. So luckily, I knew Ronnie van der Walt. He's an artist, and he makes these beautiful handmade pots. And we slowly replaced each and every pot created by in the industry by more this natural pots. So you can see this is the view from the house showing some of the euphorbia collection. And on the sides, I grow many of the cliff dwelling plants. So we grow them all on these beds. The house is just made of pine and with a translucent roof. It has a clay floor, and that which makes it very practical. And I usually water by hand. And Babylonstoren it's quite warm. It's much warmer than Christmas, and that's why we can grow, for instance, baobabs outdoors. You see many of these young baobabs that I got from Lita Cole after her death. Her brother donated all the plants to us, and so we created a garden in memory of her. And there's Ronnie van der Walt. And Ronnie, the artist, and it's taken at Withoek near Calitzdorp. And so unfortunately, a year ago, Ronnie, he passed away. He went, the first big flood they had in Calitzdorp. Ronnie drove over the river after visiting his parents in the evening, visiting his wife and his children, and the water was too strong, and the next day he was given as missing. And but later on, they discovered his 4x4 upside down in the Nelson River, and so he died tragically. Fortunately, when they found him, he had no water on his lungs, which shows he died of more of the shock of a heart attack. So this house is really a contribute to Ronnie van der Walt for this beautiful piece of art. You can see on each, there's a Babylonstoren little emblem, also with Ronnie van der Walt's emblem. And these are Castilia glomerata's, which we grown. All the pots we grow, as I said, they are handmade by Ronnie, but then we use shale chips to cover them. And so it helps also with less weeds, because weeds usually need a lot of sun and disturbance of soil to germinate. And when you cover it with the shale chips, the shale also feeds the soil, because it just gives rise to mudstone. So soil and rocks are very, very important in the garden. And also between the succulent garden house and the clever house, we also created 4 biomes. One is the Karoo Namib, the other one is the Bushveld, and then the Highveld succulents, and then the subtropical coast. It was also very, very successful, and the plants have now matured. And it's just adjacent to the stream. The owners thought, well, if the place is named Babylonstoren Farm, let's take the theme of the Babylonian Empire throughout. So this river is known as the Tigris River. We've got a Euphrates River. The restaurant is known as Babel. We even have a Nebuchadnezzar wine. So that theme is taken throughout. And if you look at all the interpretation as well, most of the signs will have lots of languages. It also reflects the Tower of Babel. So these are some of the rare plants we grow. These are Alohardii, and also these Cotyledon ascendens, rare endemic from Port Elizabeth, easily grown. And it's the only really climbing cotyledon. And there's Sansevieria stuckii. Most Sansevierias are from Africa. This is a tropical one, which also occurs right to Zululand. These beautiful long flower, tubed flowers that usually flowers towards the evening and are also pollinated by moths. That's the front of the area. This area we use mainly for creating miniature gardens. So we want to show people that you can grow even in a flat on your balcony, a little miniature garden with many succulents growing together. They're very social little plants, and they're very easy to maintain, and one can go on holiday and come back. They will still be alive, unlike bonsai, which one has to be so careful if you go away one day and you don't water them. But this theme, for instance, is a Drakensberg theme, was Aloe aristata, Aloe pratensis, and Crashua sarcocaulum on this area. This is a little piece from the Tankwa Karoo, and see the Casteria collection. We were very fortunate for Dr. Gerrit Visser donated us many plants, which we also keep here. That's Casteria Armstrongi. At the moment, I am busy with redoing my book on Casterias, and we are bringing it up to date. One of the very rare little plants, Adromyces phillipsi, in flower during summer at Babylonstoren Farm. In fact, it's the only Adromyces which is bird pollinating. You can see these long tubular flowers that resembles a cotyledon. It's closely related to cotyledon, but you can see the leaf spiral. And there's the 4 biomes garden, more recent. That's Bushveld, that is the Karoo Namib, and the subtropical coast is in the background. It's also a close-up of more close-up of it, Bushveld, subtropical coast. And in between, we've got these ponds with indigenous fish in as well. We've got, for instance, the Cape Bream, Sandelia capensis, and that's showing the high-felt succulents. And most of these reeds are indigenous as well. So we've got a lot of water blommetjes which we use in our restaurant as well. The leopard orchid is the largest orchid in Africa. It grows very easily in the Western Cape. We got some plants donated from Rustenburg in the northwest, and we placed them here in an old wild olive tree, and it did so well, flowering annually. You can see also the beautiful wood orchid, Bonatia speciosa. You see the orchid, the leopard orchid in flower. And the characteristics of them is always these dark spots. In Afrikaans, it's known as a Mopane orchidea. If you go to the Kruger Park in many parts of Africa, they often grow on Mopane trees. So another one of the projects I was involved with is they created new fynbos hotels also on the farm, and they asked me to landscape this area with and creating something dramatic. Swimming pool was created, and also this wall to provide some privacy. We made use of local rock formation, and the local rocks at this level are all siltretes. So siltretes are very common. So this was when it was shortly planted. We first started with planting the pioneers and then introducing the shale chips to prevent weeds. You can see this Osteospermum imbricatum, a beautiful pioneer which flowered so well. Together, we planted all your permanent plants. And I created 3 biomes. One is the Eastern Cape Cycad biome, fynbos, as well as succulent Karoo biome. And this is the succulent Karoo biome that's taken the last spring. And there is the swimming pool as it is today, surrounded by a natural pond. And in this pond, we introduced the Ochikoto tilapia, which I got again from Kersmos, from their collection at the time. And the little fish are doing very well. But you can see that's the fynbos region. Plants matured very well. But like any garden, a garden never stops. There's always work to be done, and it's never an end. Every year there's maintenance to do. At the background, you can see there's Simonsberg. Incidentally, Simonsberg wasn't named after Simon van der Stel, the governor at the Cape at the time. It was named after Pierre Simond. And Pierre Simond was the first French preacher who came with the French Huguenots. So the French Huguenots were prosecuted, they found safety, and the open passage, a free passage to the Cape at the time. And they established the wine industry in South Africa. And also, if you look on this little hill, it's called Kanonkop. We had a cannon there, and that cannon was then later introduced, but a little bit later about that. So the rocks coming back to this rockery, all these are ultramafic lavas, and they're about 1 billion years old. Or the siltretes that we use, they're about 1.5 million years old. So the siltretes were usually used by the indigenous people to create these older Stone Age artifacts. And these are the little fish in the pond, the tilapia guinasana. Amazingly about them, they lost their control over camouflage, occurring from one lake in Namibia. They don't have predators, no competition from other fish. So they lost their control over camouflage, and you get all these beautiful colors. It's a lovely school fish. Mother and father look after the brood. They're not now brooders, but they will protect their fish. And if any fish comes close to where they are breeding, they will chase them away. But it's a lovely school fish and beautiful educational value. You can see that male with a dark tail and the different iridescent colors, and some of them are completely albino. Also, in creating a rockery is never complete without its lizards. So we started off, as I said, with the pioneer plants. We grew them, and once they're well established, we plant the other plants. The permanent plants are planted together, but once they are growing well, they create a good haven for insects. The insects follow up. Once the insects are there, it's time to introduce the reptiles. So we introduced the blue-headed agama, also the local girdle-tail lizard, Cordylus. And these blue-headed agamas are beautiful lizards, and the males becoming beautiful blue, their heads become blue, and the visitors enjoy them. But in fact, they become quite tame and running about in this area, and they've multiplied as well. Once you create the habitat, the lizards will stay. And this is part of that garden in springtime. It's very, very, very highly colorful, and you can see the back of the swimming pool and the area. And just if you look at the back, there's olifantskop, resembling the elephant. It's also known as groot Drakenstein pig as well. So we've got introduced aloe licatilis. This is still the famous area. That is the succulent area of this garden. So the garden was quite successful. The famous area was Creek rocks, and we make use of planting lots of wild olives. That's one of the few trees that can take the long dry summers of the Western Cape, and one of the best trees to use in setting up a garden in the Western Cape. Also, during time of COVID, we had such a big request of vegetables, homegrown and organically grown vegetables. And Koos then decided, let's create another huge vegetable garden. And that was built during COVID time, where they deliver vegetables. And then he asked me, he said, between this garden and the succulent house, please create a succulent garden. And then I asked him, I said, well, I've had experience with Velvetyas, growing them indoors in the conservatory at Cosmos. Can't I use and create a Velvetya garden and also a Namib garden? And he gave me permission. So the first thing I started was to put in heating cables. And this is the area, it's about 8 by 8 meters. We will grow Velvetyas. This is just the initial part, and then we covered it with red sand from the Kalahari. So this was the garden. You can see all the grid of the heating cables. That was the early stages of the creating a rockery. We went to Stanford and many, many other places to get rocks for the garden. And then we ordered some red sand from the Van Reinsdorp area, and we covered the Velvetya garden about 30 centimeters deep, just as I've done in the conservatory at Cosmos. And then you can see the rockery is now complete. We also started the pioneers. This is the succulent house, and looking out, there's the vegetable garden adjacent to it. And we've made also use of beautifully shaped rocks just for entertainment and showing the beautiful sculpture. So we collected rocks from all over the Western Cape for this garden. You can see this was the early stages, planting the pioneers, and then together we planted the Allodicotoma, the Cyphostemas, and at a stage like this, it's too early to bring in the lizards. So we haven't started bringing in lizards yet, but we also to manipulate the climate, we introduced the Beaufort shale chips, and these chips we use as a ground cover, and that absorbs a lot of energy. And I'll show you in the, and also we got hold of petrified wood to show the real fossils from the Free State from the time which we put in among the Velvetya plants. Because if you go to Corrigas, you'll often find Velvetya plants growing among petrified wood. So, and this is the Velvetya garden being completed. And this is the petrified wood stump that lies there. These are all dolerite rocks. We've got, in fact, I shaped this garden almost like a big Velvetya plant. The central feature where we grow the Velvetya, and all these arms going out from the garden, which resembles their leaves going out in all directions. So we've just sown the Velvetya seedlings of the seed about 3 weeks ago. We've had really good germination. Introduce these little rocks so that they can come up in between the rocks, and that helps that people don't walk on the seedlings themselves. It is an experiment. I've also introduced a tent. We will have a pole there, and during winter times, we'll cover them only when the rain comes. So we've got these tent pegs, we will protect them. These are dolerites from Williamstown area, and these are also local limestone from Stanford. In fact, all these different rocks will get all the information from them. For instance, the ironstone or dolerite rocks from the origin, where they came from, also the age. And I luckily had Nick Norman, a geologist, that helped me a lot with information on it. And you can see the rock here today. That's one of the arms that flows out from the central Velvety. And that's a little young seedling emerging from the sand. So it is an experiment to try and grow Velvetyas outside to show people how the nummup looks. And you can see the adjacent vegetables. At this stage, we will, into the next stage from here, we will, at the moment, it has no lizards in, but the next stage will be bringing in the blue-headed agamas as well as the local lizards. Luckily, we've got lots of the local girdle-tailed lizards on our copy, and also we got the agamas from our adjacent farm, Soetmelk's Vlei. And at the moment, this is our vegetable garden in fruit, February 2022, and just look at the harvest. All these different pumpkins, and they today are exhibited in the Puff Adder. We have a Puff Adder section where we do all these exhibitions, and it always rotates. So this is the month of the pumpkin. So do yourself a favor, come and look at the diversity of pumpkins. Pumpkins come from North America, as well as here maize. So North America gave us so many fruits, as well as even animals, if you think of the turkeys as well. And small wonder that in America that they have these annual festivals. Where we also acquired a compost machine, so we make all our compost ourselves, and we've got very, very good people caring for them as well. And then that's the Cycad garden in 2017. We still we want to create a very, very good or a very thorough garden who has all the South African plants as well as the African plants as well. And we have recently appointed Ernst van Jaarsveld from the Cycad Society to help us with building this garden. You see Encephalatus fridrisi galilmi, see beautiful Encephalatus inopinus, and even we've got a wood cycad as well. But we recently acquired two big plants which the owners brought in from Durban. So these are the two. They arrived in October 2021. They weighed 22 tons, and it was a big operation to get them out where they stood. They stood in a private garden in between a swimming pool and a house. All the walls had to be demolished, plant get out, and also the swimming pool had to be reconstructed afterwards. But they arrived in the roots, you can see here, were boxed into this wooden boxes. The two cycads is the one, that's the other one. And they were then planted. First, there was a whole prepared, this whole amphitheater created, all the soil were dug out and drainage provided. And Wynand helped us with inquiring for getting the right type of soil. These gabions today, I planted them with plants, indigenous plants, first the pioneers and other plants, and they are growing very, very well. But these are the two, and we also then created a new waterfall in that portion. And you'll see here at the bottom where they are still busy digging out this the drainage and preparing that. And this is shortly after they were planted, you can still in the steel frames that will stay on for at least a year. But you can see the plants started sprouting. So they're doing very, very well. Lots of little pups. So they are very valuable for people that don't know. These two cycads became extinct in nature. They only occurred on one granite dome, which is in Mtunzini, near Mtunzini in the Ngoya forest. Many people had a look to find if they can find any female plants. Only males were found at the time, and females were never found since then. Then also, if I look at education, Babylonstoren does invest a lot in education. So we provide workshops, and I'm involved with many, many workshops that you see below, and you can see it on our website as well. I'd also do garden tours on Mondays and Fridays between 11:30 and 1. And it's more specialist tours, taking them to the spice house or to the Velvety garden and showing them how we recreated them. We also have, every year we take in students. We take students for 3 months or 6 months or a year. And it's mainly young people. We also have many volunteers that come and help us in our vegetable garden and other parts of the garden. And the whole atmosphere at the Babylonstoren is very friendly, and with all these young people around. And what a joy to work with them as well. And the puff adder at the moment has got pumpkins in, but in springtime, all our clivias are in flower, and it's a blaze of color along the Tigris stream, all underneath the shade of these wild olive trees. And this is part of the McDowell collection that we also keep, which the owners have brought in to show people at the time. And this is during the time of when they flower with the clivias in 2019. And we're also now having an annual rock exhibition. And we display rocks mainly from the Western Cape, and we display from the earliest to the oldest rocks. So what you see here, ultramorphic lavas, these are mica schist, very old rocks, then the marbles and dolomites and the manganese. And it goes over to Cape granite, and we take people on a journey, showing them, because geology is extremely important. We all eat from soil. Where does soil come from? It comes from the rocks. We take it for granted. Depending on the rock type, that is the soil type. Fortunately, at Babylonstoren Farm, we've got our basic soil is granite and Malmesbury shales. We've got very good soil. But if you look around us, all the TMS, all the quartzitic sandstone, very poor soils. But we look after our soil well. Our trees get a mulch every year. They get good composting and then covered with mulch to keep the moisture in. And what you put in, you get out. And the better we look after our soil, the better our fruit crop will be. And that's the same exhibition, but from the earliest rocks. These are all limestones. And this is and we don't only look at the geology, but also rocks of beautiful art forms. And the Chinese started with these rocks. They exhibit, and Willem Pretorius helped us. That's a rock from him, which he borrowed to us. And so with the rock exhibition, we also put, apart from all the science, we also put in some poems on rocks and other things. And we've got venues for weddings, other functions, and keeping people entertained. This is the Spice House. And if we think what shaped South Africa as it is today was a lack of spices in Europe. And what we see today is the end result, but we wanted to display those spices. I looked everywhere to get them, but we couldn't get them. We could only get a few from South Africa. So my boss sent me to both Zanzibar and the Seychelles. And the end product, we got all the spices together. Galangal, turmeric, and ginger, we could get local. And we got cloves, nutmeg that were traded by the VOC. And today, this is in the Spice House. This is a big aquarium below, and provides humidity. And again, we've got these aquariums with tropical fish. Also, the theme is from the east. You can see in the background is coffee, and there's galangal, and also there's black pepper. So, and these are all the different spices. These are, which I took in Seychelles, the beautiful nutmeg and the black pepper. And we also do I'm involved in a lot of research projects. One of them is to grow these rare obligatory cliff face succulent plants, get them painted, and eventually we'll produce a book on them and the educational value. This is an unnamed species of buchu, which Terry Trinder-Smith is going to name from the cedar book, which I helped with, and we got it illustrated. I recently, I still go on many expeditions. This was one to Sierra Cafema in Angola. We did a helicopter expedition, which were arranged by NUS, the Namibian University of Science and Technology. And this was one of the new coleus species we found, which we will name shortly as well. And then we also have many other little cliff dwellers, which we grow and display for the public. And this little Ficus mullerana, grows only on sheer cliffs in the Chimanimani Mountains in Zimbabwe. And Anne Morris made this beautiful painting for us where the plant occurs. So wild olives are our local indigenous trees, which are the oldest of all our trees, and they grow very, very slowly, while all the introduced trees usually go too fast, like the oaks, and usually they're hollow inside because of the growing so quick, and they get all sorts of diseases. And we encourage people to rather plant local indigenous, because that's the basis of water-wise gardening. Plant what is local to you and the best. And conservation Babylonstoren, we conserve all these plants. This little beautiful girdle-tailed lizards, Cordalis occurs naturally on our copy. We've got lots of water snakes, and this is the olive house snake, which is common along our stream. We've got lots of slug-eating snakes as well. And as I mentioned, also, and then Cape Cobras is a beautiful yellow speckled one, which I often catch them, me and my colleague Arnay and Stander, and we will release them again. And these cobras are non-aggressive, and they will rear up and put up a show, but they will never attack. It's only snake collectors or people that you try to grab hold of them. And how I do it, I usually catch them by the tail. And the secret is keep your eyes always on the head. And the heads are, you see where the head is and it's not close to the tail, you just pick them up gently. And if you are gently with snakes, they are gently back. I usually just have a big drum, lift it up by its tail, put it into the drum, close the lid, take it to a safe area. And we only will remove them from areas where they are within the tail range as well. So angulates, yeah, that was one of the fire. It shows they also struggle with fire, but a lot of them survive and heal up again. And these are other tortoises, and these are the little breviceps, last opi, gibboses, which is common on the farm. Puffaders are also very common. The most favorite food of the Cape Cobra is puffadder. So when at times when puffaders become too many, the Cape Cobra sort them out. And you see the Cape dwarf chameleon, they're also quite common on the farm. And the Cape skink, there's a pioneer lizard that always moves in, and the local Patluoperomopus areolatus, which occur in the Nosterveld. The leopard tortoise comes more from this eastern part, summer rainfall parts of South Africa. Their main diet is grass. And you always have them fighting in the garden as well. The tourists enjoy it, and the males always try to turn one upside down so it can run away with its female. And then also in our ponds, we've released many local Cape terrapins, and we're still busy with that project. As I said, we are friendly to all local indigenous animals, as Arnay releasing. And also at the famous fish ponds, we released some Sandelia capensis, our local Cape bream, as well as the little rooi-flat and Pseudobarbus burgi. You can see all these plants, all local indigenous. And yeah, again, the genets, they're also common, and guinea fowl, we've got lots of, we've also got caracal. They can be a nuisance, and especially the otters, they often do troubles as well. I'm also involved with bringing back the Karoo vlakvat, or the Cape warthog. The Cape warthog went extinct about in the 1860 about. It roamed the Karoo areas. It was named as Phacochurus ethiopicus, which means from the south. And in the meantime, the bushveld warthog was named, but the two was confused, and they were always treated as the same species. And we realized, looking at the DNA, that they were two very distinct species. And what happened is, in Ethiopia, they discovered two types of warthog. The one, Phacochurus ethiopicus and africanus. And they looked at the DNA, and it was identical. The one species in Ethiopia, the DNA was identical to our Karoo vlakvat, or our Karoo warthog. And we want to reintroduce it back into at Babylonstoren. We especially got people to help us, and Esther van Westhuizen from the butterfly world, and that is James from the zoo not Angola, Uganda. So he works at Uganda. They are going to help us to reintroduce these original warthogs back into the Western Cape. So the difference between them, the bushveld warthog I've got these Wangfratte, which is usually pointed, but in the Karoo vlakvark, it's a little bit shorter and smaller species, and they are usually curved downwards on their chins. So that's one. The other conservation things we are doing involved with, for instance, growing rare indigenous plants. This is Metarungia galpini in our shade garden in flora, and again the water crine. I showed it also. We also make use of biological control. We've got bat boxes as well as lots of owl boxes where we encourage the owls to do biological control and looking after the rodents in the bat boxes. So it is usually very effective. I use it in the conservatory in Kersmos very well with gecko shelters. And at Babylonstoren Farm, we also created these little gecko shelters to control all these night flying moths. For instance, the tiger moth, which does damage to our mesons. And also this, if I think of the codling moth as well. Another project is is the cedar tree project. We're busy. The cedar trees of the cedarburg are very difficult to grow, but I took some seedlings to Robbie Thomas in Betty's Bay, and I asked him, please, can you graft them for us? And he did. So we used the Willowmore cedar, which is from the Willowmore area, and Babylonstoren grows very easy on its own roots. It's a strong growing tree, while the cedar trees from the cedarburg are difficult. They've got specialist roots. So we used the cedar trees from the Clan William as the onderstok, and where we grafted, and you can see here seed of them, which we harvested. These are the seedlings coming up, and once they were big enough, they were grafted. And you can see in this part the graft that Robbie did for us. And it means that one can grow the Clan William cedar on a different type of rootstock. In any case, the two are so closely apart that if you see the two trees without their habitat, you would think it's the same. Another species we want to recreate is the wild rye, the Roggeveld of the Western Cape. The rye comes from the Roggeveld, and we got some seed. That's the farmer, Wes Esterhuizen, who looked after the seed. And this is our natural. We almost finished. This is after fire. And see what happens. This is Kanon Pop, or we on Kanon Pop, looking at Simonsberg. You can see these Alopecatillas growing on the farm, pitch black, as they're scorched by the by the fire. But the plants are very healthy. And you can see the damage that the fire does. But in spite of that, the corky bark helps them. We've got a lot of hiking trails, wildlife, fishing, a lot of narines, and you can see a natural plant, the aloe fan aloe growing on, and that's our icon species. After the fire we had a few years back, the Watsonia borbonicus in flower, lots of Laganalia aurea along the stream, and the Gladiolus caryophyllaceus coming. But fires are so normal. Two fynbos, and these are other plants that came up after the fire, typical fynbos plants. And you can see our local fynbos are known as granite sands, local granite renosterveld. Fynbos it's called. And then we also grow a lot of veldbos. We've got, for instance, Cyprenia van Rensburgie, waterblommetjies, vetkousies, wild almond, as well as the veldkool, which is known as the wild asparagus, and that's Trachyandra falcata, very, very popular. We're also creating a shade garden, which I'm involved with, and getting all these plants. The other thing is we have a gardening app, which is free to download, and which you can ask any gardening question. It puts gardeners together, and they can make contact with each other through this gardening app. But there's much more to this gardening app as well. Apart from just one can post on it and can share knowledge on it as well. And it's completely free. But thank you for listening to me, and please feel welcome to anytime visit Babylonstoren Farm. And if I can't take you around, my colleagues, like I've got so many locals that can help with helping people on the farm, showing them around, or you can go on your own. So John, thank you. That's the, I don't know, did I go over time?
Not at all, not at all, Doc. In fact, we would love for you to continue on and on and on and on. I must actually take a second to read you some of the comments that have just been coming in, and absolutely, fantastic comments. And I think it echoes everybody that's on this call this morning, just saying how fantastic the work that you're doing is, how beautiful it is. In fact, one of the comments said, a Babylonstoren is almost like heaven on earth, if I'm not quoting verbatim there. But let me also just share this quick info with everybody that's on the call. Ernst is actually an author of many books. In fact, some of the books you've shared with us, we can see them on the screen. But one interesting thing that I want to just share with everybody is he actually has 3 plants named after him. I mean, how many people can say that? I know you are very modest and you never want to, say some of these things, but can you just tell us, how does it feel to actually have plants named after you?
So I'm thankful, but I would have preferred it to be rather named after the plant, some character, because that's why people give names. So the one plant was named by Dr. Cod, named it after me, Plectranthus ernsti, but it should have been perhaps been better name would have been Plectranthus potatorum, because it has little tuberous stems. But yeah, so that's the others, and there's also one of my colleagues, Stephen Hammer, named the little conophytum after me, Conophytum ernsti, which I collected on we did a boat trip along the Orange River in about 1985 or 6, I think. And we found this, myself and Andrew Jacobs, who's from Kirstenbosch. And we went up early in the morning to the top of that mountain. And I said to Andrew, can you see where the fog lies in this Orange River Valley in the Richtersveld? It's sort of at the top among the cliffs. That's where you will find interesting things. And as we got there it was. It was a brand new little conophytum, which then Steve Hammer named for me. The third one I think was Eriospermum, one of these Bobbejaan eier that I found on the Pallaberg, which and I think it was Pauline Perry that named it after me.
Sure.
But I'm so thankful for having this work at Babylonstoren, and thankful for the owners giving me this opportunity, and thankful to work with so many young students that I can share my knowledge with. And I think the reason why the owners got me, it was for that, to bring the knowledge that I learned from Christmas Botanic Gardens, that I can now do it in practice and create this garden. So I enjoy it very, very much, growing plants. I had to, obviously it was quite a shock coming, because the climate is so different, although it's not so far from Christmas, but the further you come from the sea, this peninsula is really, the climate is very much influenced by the coast. But the further you go away from it, the more it becomes severe. So our winters are colder and our summers are warmer.
Sure. Very interesting. And while we are on that topic, with all the beautiful work that you're doing, I want to just get you to start thinking about this one particular question. In fact, 2 that I have. Think about them. You don't have to answer them now, because I'm going to just take other questions quickly. But I want you to just share with us, if you may, just with all the wonderful projects that you're working on, at the farm. What's the capital investment? How much do you put into such amazing projects that you do? And that's the first thing. And the second thing is, what's the operational cost of keeping all of these projects alive? It must be costing an arm and a leg, let alone the level of expertise that you're putting in the projects.
You're right. but yeah, and I think the budget is bottomless for what is concerned. So if I need to get rocks, or I need someone to help, we can just order it and we get it, very, very quickly, and we can then recreate. So I don't really budget ahead and said we're going to do this or that. The owner is full of ideas. He's a visionary, and he's always looking for new ideas wherever we go, and occasionally he will tell us do this or do that, and leading us with it. And as I said, the budget is, what I am concerned, it's bottomless for this projects I'm doing. So that's the nice thing. It's not a struggle to get a hold of money, and so I'm very, very thankful for that as well, to be able to recreate all these beautiful rock places and so forth.
Absolutely amazing. Let me take a couple of questions quickly, and we have quite a few, and I'm hoping we can spend just a few minutes quickly just chatting about them, Doc. Starting with quickly Anonymous, who's joining us on the call, is asking, is there any specific genus of plants other than the Velvety that you have found challenging to cultivate, and why? Let me take another one quickly from Henley. Henley saying, are the heating lines of the Velvety active during the whole year or just in the winter time? And I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Okay, just John, just repeat again the eating line. Sorry,
Velvety. So are the heating lines of the Velvety? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Are they active during the whole year or just in the winter period time?
They are active only in winter time, and also we activated them now with the germination period. But we will shortly, once they germinated well, but in winter time we'll definitely activate them, because I found, for instance, at Kirschenbos, the difference between not having heat and heat is major. The plants do much better with heat. And it shows, for instance, even in the trees, the oak trees from Europe, they grow here much quicker because of the heat of Africa. But to think of Velvetyas, it occurs north of the Tropic of Capricorn. So it's a tropical plant. And when you bring them to the Southwest Cape, they benefit from that extra heat, and they flower much quicker. I got them, for instance, after 3 years, the males in cone, and after 5 years, the first females in cone. So I hope it will work here, but it's an experiment, and we'll keep on trying.
Ah, awesome. And what about that particular one, Doc? The specific genus of plant, other than the Velvety, which one do you find more challenging to cultivate?
Well, there's many that is quite challenging. Some of them are quite easy, and others. But I think if I think of in the aloe family, I like the Casterias very much, and it's because they're quite easy to grow. But we have at the moment quite challenges because they've got all sorts of problems and diseases and things, so which we have to look at. And we usually, as I said, we prefer biological control rather than anything else. But there's, most plants want to grow, and if you bring them into cultivation, and it's just to give them the frail care in the beginning, and to see what are they. And they usually, the plants tell us what is wrong with them by their growth performance. So the problem with when the collection becomes too big, usually some plants will get neglected. Therefore, you can only handle. I've got to play father, mother, doctor to these plants. Water them when they need water, and it's not always an easy task because the diversity is so great. But there are many plants which pose challenges. And I think also the half-mains, the Pachypodium namaquanum, and I've got a friend, Ralph Peckover. And he started grafting our difficult to grow half-mains onto a different Pachypodium. He grows them onto the Pachypodium Saundersy, which is a very easily grown summer rainfall Pachypodium, while our half-mains is a winter rainfall. And the end result is you create a plant which grows so easy, and that's what we do in agriculture all the time. If you have a nice fruit cultivar and it's not good on its own roots, put it onto something stronger. And so that was a big success by my colleague Ralph Peckover, which means that the man in the street can also grow the Pachypodium namaquanum with quite ease. Another plant as well I find challenging at Christmas was the quiver tree. But here at Babylonstoren, luckily our climate allows that we can grow them outside. But there's still lots of things that we learn from these trees. They are amazingly drought tolerant. But we learn all the time. They've got this root system, And I found usually that plants, the younger they are, the better they transplant. It's the same with us as humans. If we get transplanted to Japan, at a young age, we will survive, but at the older age, we're going to struggle to cope with that community, for instance, and not learning a new language and learning a new culture. And it's, yeah, plants are so much like us humans, and it's just to try and understand the background from them and how to grow them.
Yeah, sure. Prof, absolutely incredible. I mean, the stuff that you're dealing with is they're just amazing, amazing. Let me take a quick shout out. We've got Ezra. In fact, there are two people that joined us on the call earlier on. One from Kenya, Nairobi is Anne. I just wanted to give a shout out to Anne. And we had a lady joining us from Botswana, and I missed that. I just had it here, so I just wanted to give those two shout outs. And Doc, you know, we're having so many things just coming in, you know, individuals saying, you know, what an amazing talk. We've got Jill from Zim saying, oh, this is absolutely fantastic. Could you just tell us, is Babylon open 365 days a year? And what are the operation times there?
It's a people-friendly garden, always open. So you can come at any time. Usually, I think it should perhaps close in the evenings, obviously, and people will go home. But it's always from Mondays to the end of the weekends. And there's always, on weekends as well, there's always people that will take garden tours and showing people around to just give a background of the farm and its people and what we do on the farm.
Lovely. Yeah, let me just take a few questions, Prof. I see we still quite have a whole contingent on this call over here. I don't think everybody wants to go. So for the benefit of everybody that's still on the line, I'll just take 3 more questions and then we'll wrap it up and say our thanks and goodbyes. A question from Jonathan says, thank you very much for the talk, Doc. Do you have plans to produce a second volume of your Gasteria book? That's the first one. And then Kali saying, please repeat the name of the wild asparagus that you shared with us on the presentation. And then let me just take Melanie's one as well. You're saying, and she's asking, wouldn't the warthogs do a lot of damage there, digging up the bulbs, etc.? And what do you do to mitigate some of nature's natural challenges that you get in the farm?
So what is it? What did you say? Who digs up the bulbs? The birds?
Yes, the warthogs.
The what? The warthogs.
Yes, the warthogs.
No, we don't have warthogs at the moment.
Oh,
but
okay.
Remember, I said we have built the pen. We will only we're going to bring in the Cape warthog, which went extinct.
Oh,
many animals like the blauwbokkie went extinct. And we are in the process of dealing with all the conservation authorities. And it's a whole process. It's not going to be in a rapid time. And the Karoo or the Cape warthog were quite different from the Bushveld warthog. And it had different foraging. I know the Bushveld warthog is a big pest. And it can, when introduced in the wrong part, can cause a lot of damage. While the Cape warthog was at its own niche. It had a very specialist niche. And that's why it went extinct as well. But then what was the first? Coming to the other question that you wanted to ask me, the first one, you asked the Gasteria book. So the Gasteria book, definitely, that was published about in 1994, and it's high time. So we are almost finished. I've got this time I got 2 co-authors. I got Jeanette Doodle to do all the paintings. We've got all the paintings done, and it won't be so long. We're still struggling with the naming of a lot of the plants, because a lot of them were named, and the taxonomy is extremely complicated, just that naming game, because the rules have changed as well of this naming game. So Derek Tribble from England is helping me, and also I've also invited Sean Guldenhuis, who loves Gasterias, and the 3 of us will then produce a new updated book. But I think maybe later this year or early next year that it will appear. But so we've updated it, and we will have 30 species from the older one, which had about half of those species. And they were, the second question, I can't, if you can just remind me what that was after the Casteria, the book.
I think you got all of them, Doc. And in fact, there was another one from Otto, where Otto was just asking, do you have a habitat of geometric tortoises in the farm? Habitat for geometric tortoises.
We have Renosterveld on the farm, which is naturally, but I got the tortoise experts here from Cape Nature, and we wanted to reintroduce some, and we had a look at the existing place, and they told us that it's not suitable for geometric tortoises. So so that tortoise we do not have on display, but it's the three other ones that I showed that we have on display at the moment.
Oh,
so
beautiful!
Not the geometric tortoise, but it's a very beautiful and very rare tortoise, and obviously we would love to get some. But releasing it, such a rare animal, and the conditions must be right. It must have the right food plants, etc., as well for these little animals to survive.
I must say, the biodiversity in the farm is absolutely amazing. I like how you talk about that special cobra, and you say it is such a gentle creature. All you have to do is just be gentle with it. I'm like, dog, really? I wouldn't want to mess with that. But let me take this quick question from Sherry, which is going to be the last one, and I'm just going to share some of the few comments that have come up on the chat. Sherry saying, how has the Garden of the Sand 2016 water scarce region coped with the heavy rains, winter rainfall of last year? And she continues to say, my succulent garden suffered tremendously with rooting rods and fungi. And how have you guys been able to cope with that?
That's right. No, it is always because plants have got a tolerance. Even if the Karoo plants, like that section she's talking about, the Robertson Karoo area. So they had a lot of rain, but luckily our beds are raised. And if you think of Kirstenbosch, the Matthews Rockery, it has huge giant succulents, Euphorbia ingens, 10 meters tall. And there's such a lot of succulent all growing together. And it's because the good drainage were introduced. So plants have a tolerance, either too little water or too much water. It's like our humans as well. They can give us a little bit too little or too much food, and we can tolerate that. So nature is adaptable, and therefore we luckily we didn't, with a lot of rain we had last year. It just benefited our plants very much, and we had a lot of growth. But unfortunately, we didn't lose any of our succulents, and the reason was because they had a well-drained swell. So as I said, they can tolerate. Sometimes it will cause a little bit damage here and there, but it was so minimal that I can't really, the rainfall did more good than harm. But the previous year, remember that year we had a tremendous drought. That was the year we established also the quiver trees, and for them it was perfect. It was a good establishing year to get these dry land plants in, and they just benefited from that time period. But plants are adaptable, and if one understands them and treat them gently, they usually perform well. And as I said, they can tolerate sometimes a little bit too much love, or as a little bit too little love.
Doc, I must say, you are an absolute natural when it comes to this online hybrid presentation stuff. You're doing so great. I think you should do more of these presentations online. Let me just take a quick comments that have just come in from the chat. Roger saying, this is a fantastic talk. I'm really enjoying it and learning so much. Thank you, Ernst. Thanks to Strake, thanks to Kirstenbosch. Jenny saying, I'm realizing how much I still have to see out there. There's just amazing things to see. And thanks to you, Ernst, for sharing all of those. Leslie saying, thank you very much. Leila also just, saying, this is just so beautiful. This is, and I like how she says, this is a visual feast of living national treasure. I think that's absolutely amazing. I think we're going to take all of that and we're going to actually caption it and create a hashtag and share it on our social media. Zedka saying Babylonstoren Farm is a little bit of heaven on earth. And, you know, I couldn't have said it better myself. Charles saying, wonderful, Ernst, you know, I can't wait to come and visit. Some of us, I think a lot of comments also, you know, saying, you know, everybody just keep thinking, oh, we want to come and visit, but not everybody on the call has had the opportunity to go and visit. And I think this presentation has just spiked that interest again to want to come through. So brace yourself this weekend when you're seeing an entourage of vehicles coming to visit your, your wonderful establishment out there. And then let me also just share quickly with everybody. We've shared this information, and I'm just reiterating to everybody that's on the call. Registrants of this particular call will receive a 15% discount on the following books: Cartiledon and Tylocodon, Tree Alloys of Africa, Velvety, Mirables, and Guide to Succulent of Southern Africa, Succulent Flora of Southern Africa, and Guide to Succulents of Southern Africa. All of these books are available at the Kirstenbosch National Botanical Bookshop. So please make sure to come and visit the garden. And once you've visited the garden here at Kirstenbosch, went into the bookshop, gotten the books, make your way to Babylonstoren so you can get Doc Ernst to come and put a signature on those books so that you can keep them on your bookshelves. And otherwise, Doc, you know, just amazing comments from everybody saying this is absolutely amazing. I mean, we are almost 2 hours into this call and we still have like 100 people still logged on this call. That's just, you know, speaks about the amazing presentation that you've shared. And from my side, I just want to thank everybody that's joined us on this call. Thank Belinda and the team. Thank Kathy Abbott for always going out of her way to make sure that we've got fantastic presenters like yourself. So let me give you 1 or 30 seconds, Doc, to just say thank you to everybody, and any last words from your side.
Thank you very much, everybody, for all the comments, and very welcome at Babylonstoren Farm. If there's any gardening problems you have, please feel free to contact me or any of my colleagues. And if I can't answer it, because there's many questions I won't be able to, I can ask my colleagues and even at customers. So come and visit us anytime. Very welcome. Thank you for listening to me. I'm thankful to the owners as well for providing this opportunity.
Doc, we are absolutely grateful, and thank you for sharing your passion with us. You know, they say once you do what you love, you never have to work a day in your life, and you are a true depiction of that saying. Thank you for sharing your passion with us. Thank you for the wonderful work that you do. Everything that is coming your way, even the naming of plants after you, you absolutely deserve it. So please, we share in that enjoyment with you because we love the work that you do. Everybody that's still on the call, please go ahead and like our Facebook page, Kirstenbosch Facebook page. Don't forget to go and like Straight Nature Facebook page. And don't forget to also go and visit Room to Grow. Room to Grow has been designing and you know, doing garden landscapes all over for many years. So please go and like Room to Grow, like Facebook page, and also go and check out Babylonstoren Facebook page as well, and give as many likes as you possibly can. This talk will be shared on our Facebook page as well as YouTube. So feel free to share, continue with the comments, and share with all your loved ones. Prof, from my side, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and we look forward to welcoming you again soon on this platform. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Until we meet again. See you guys next time.